Hi everybody, it's Kathy. I am going to demonstrate how to create that border for your abstract art assignment. And we want to start with the exercise 9A instructions, and we're going to edit those just a little bit so that you can get your border to be the correct size for your art project. So go ahead and open up your inch helper. It doesn't have to be the template, it can just be a DWG drawing, and this is what you're going to see. I recommend, for ease of seeing what you're doing, to go to your line weights and to turn off the line weights so that it becomes a thin line. If you're not seeing your line weights down here in the status bar, then you want to go over here to your customization, 3 little lines that are parallel to each other. Click on customization and make sure that your line weight here is actually selected. If the check mark is off, it will be not showing. If the check mark is on, it will show. And so it's down here. That's what it looks like. And if it's blue, your line weights will display. And if it's not, your line weights will be thin, which will help us be able to see what we're doing here. So you want to leave this border there for now. And we want to set up our units. Again, if your units here are not showing in your status bar, go to customization, look for units, and make sure the check mark is checked. You will see the units displayed down here in your status bar. We want to make sure that it says decimal, and if it doesn't, then you would click on this down arrow and change it from whatever it says to the check mark next to decimal. And then in order to change the precision, you can type in units also. This is another way to get to adjust your units. When you type in units in the command line, you will get the drawing units dialog box. And we want to make sure that our precision is set to 0. We have decimal here, and we click OK. The next thing we want to set up is our drawing limits. So in this case, we would type in the command line limits, enter, and notice that it says limits specify lower left corner. Lower left corner at 0, 0 means this point right here where our origin is currently. So 0, 0 is correct. If this is what it says as your default, you can hit enter. You can also type it in just to be sure if you wish, but enter would be fine as long as this is saying 0, 0 here. The upper limits, now for your assignment 9A, you want to keep this at 11, 8.5. But for our art assignment, we want to change this because we want to have an 11 by 17 sized piece of paper that we're printing, and we're using model space. So we want to type in 17, 11. That will give us 17 in the length direction and 11 in the height direction for our overall limits. Then we would hit enter. When you're using AutoCAD, any numbers that you put in are automatically going to be inches. If you want feet, you would have to type in the foot symbol. So we know if we just type in 11, 17, we have inches. So enter. And then we want to zoom all. So normally I would just type in Z for zoom, enter, and then A for all, or you could click on A. Enter. So what is going to happen now is you will see your grid extending out beyond what this initial border was. And so now we can eliminate this border completely because we're not going to be using it. So erase tool, select your border, enter. Okay, so our next step is to adjust our line weight settings. And so if you right click on the line weight display, or you could type in LW display to get the dialog box. I'm going to right click and click on line weight settings. Here we want to make sure that our line weight settings are set to inches, not millimeters. We want to use inches. And we can adjust our default if we wanted to here. I'm going to leave it at the 0.05 inches. And then we can also adjust by block or other line weight information here. The adjust display scale will minimize or maximize what you see on the screen. So we can leave that close to minimum. It'll give us an idea of how thick our line weights are, but not distract us from drawing. Once you have changed this to inches, adjusted your display scale slightly towards the minimum side, then click OK. Okay, so finally we're going to change our grid and snap settings, or at least check them. And so your grid and snap in your status bar are down here. Again, if you don't see them, go ahead and go to Customization. Make sure that you have all of the grid and snap mode checked. If you right-click over grid or right-click over snap mode, let's do grid, you'll see that you have an option to choose grid settings. Your grid settings dialog box will come up and you can change both your snap and grid in this first tab. We want the snap on, and we want the snap, in this case, set to 0.125 inches, 0.125. All you have to do is place it in 1 in the snap X spacing, click, and it will automatically change your Y spacing. And then down here in grid, we want the grids to be set at 1 inch, which it already is set. If not, you would click inside here and change it to whatever you're trying to set your grid to. Once we have that set, we click OK. We'll notice that the grid did adjust itself slightly. And we're ready to move on to step 2, where we're going to draw the border. So if you started with your inch helper, you will be able to go up to your layers and choose borderline for this next step. And then we want to draw the border with the rectangle tool. So select rectangle. And then our bottom corner point is going to be 0.375, comma 0.375. It's asking you to specify first corner. Make sure you put a comma in between your two numbers. Hit enter. And then you'll see that you're anchored down there near the origin. And your upper right-hand corner is going to be 16.25, comma 10.25. So 16.25, comma 10.25, enter, and that will give you the interior area of your drawing border with a 0.35 offset from the edge of the paper. So everything will print and it will look very nice. In other words, you'll have a 3/8 inch border. You can make that border a 1/2 inch if you wish, and so you would use different coordinates to create that. But following the 9A exercise, this would be a 3/8 inch border. The next thing we want to do is create the title block. And so in order to create the title block, we're going to use the line command. And if you have your tracking and your snap turned on, you can hover over this bottom point, track up, and tell the line command where you want to start your line. So I need to go over here and turn on my polar tracking. And also I want to make sure that my snap is turned on, my object snap. And I want endpoint to be where I'm selecting. So I want endpoint to be turned on. I have some other snap options turned on here as well. So again, line command. My snap is finding the endpoint. I'm looking for my polar tracking. Once I see that dashed line, it's saying perpendicular at 90 degrees, and it's asking for a distance, and so my distance is going to be 1.125. Once I've put that in and I know that it found my polar tracking, my anchor point becomes that point of the border. I want to take the line all the way across, make sure that my perpendicular, so again in my polar snap, I want to make sure perpendicular is checked. And as I see that perpendicular tool, let me zoom in a bit, then I can click and enter. So I now have the bottom line for my border. And here's where you can have a little bit of leeway on how you want to place your border lines, because this is much bigger than the initial ones. But I do recommend that you leave the same space here for your sheet number. So in that case, we choose the line command, and from this point, we type in the distance that we want to go, specify first point. We don't want to snap to the end point though, so we may have to turn off. Once we've selected this corner, we see our polar tracking start. Now we can type in the actual point if we wish, or we can type in the distance. So 9.125, enter. That's going to anchor us right here. So let's not use that number. I'll put that in anyway. So this could be where we have our title and our name, or some other information. We can also move the lines to be where we would like. Another line. And let's make a space here. Polar track over 2.125. And perpendicular snap, enter. So I can have my title, my sheet number here. I'm going to move this line over so that my title has more space, and then my name will go on the left-hand side. So again, we already know the move command, so select move, select your line, and then grab your endpoint, make sure you have your ortho on so that you go straight across. Pick your next point, turn off your snap, turn it off, and I'm just going to drag this over to about right here. Enter. So now I have a place for my name, I have a place for my title of my project, and I have a place for my sheet number. Okay, next let's add the text that the exercise is talking about. We'll do the same thing for this one. We're going to go to text and select multi-line text. We want to select the top corner here, so make sure that your snap is activated, and then the bottom corner here of however you set up this area for your name. We want to have the justification be middle center. Middle center. We want it to be bold. And we're going to go ahead and start typing, and then we'll edit the size later. So here you would place your name. Enter. And we can edit this now to change the size. So double click. Sorry, okay, so double click, and then in your properties area here, you can change the size to 0.250, enter. Now it just made your text a little bit larger, which is what they were asking for. And then you're going to repeat that same thing for the other two boxes. So again, text, multi-line, choose the top of this box and the bottom over here. Here you're going to type in, and make sure that you have your justification at middle center, and make sure that you've chosen bold. And here you're going to type in your project name. Enter. And we can go ahead and double click and change the text type to 0.250. And then finally, we'll do escape. Do the same thing for your sheet number. So text, multi-line, choose the box, justification, middle center, bold, and here we're going to put in AA-1, that's the name of our sheet. Enter, click outside, double click and change the size, 0.250, enter. Okay, so now our border is ready to go, and we're going to set up our print. We also need to divide the space to start our project, so we'll do that in just a second. Okay, so we do want to save this, and I would recommend that you save it as a border B template, but you can also save it as a regular drawing. So in your case, you can do a file, save as, and wherever you want to save this in your, either on a flash drive or on your desktop, and then move it to the cloud, you will be putting your last name. And then you'll be putting AA1. So this is going to be your abstract art project, and hit save. We want to also set up our print so that when we plot it, it's going to plot at 11 by 17. So you will be plotting from model space in this particular project. So in order to set that up, you're going to go to your applications menu, to the print tab, and then select the page setup option. Once you have the page setup manager here, you're going to click on new. We want to have a new page setup for model space. And we want to name this 11 by 17 with an M next to it. We want to verify that we are plotting from model space, and that's this page setup in model space. 11 by 17 M, and then click OK. You will get your page setup dialog box, and here we want to choose Microsoft. For the classroom, we want to choose Microsoft to PDF. My computer here doesn't happen to have that, so the other option that I use is Adobe PDF. If you don't have Adobe PDF, you're going to look for one that says Microsoft to PDF. We also want to change the paper size to 11 by 17. And we want to print our limits because we set our limits to 11 by 17, and so your entire project should print inside those limits. Center the plot. We also have to choose a plot style table. Now, because we're going to be working with colors and with hatching, we want to change this to acad.ctb for our plot style. When it says assign this plot style table to all layouts, we say yes. You may want to click on plot transparencies. I'm not sure how you're going to be using your hatch, but you can always check this later when you're printing. So you can either leave it unchecked, or you can check it. Depends on what your plan is for your transparencies. Once you have this completely set up, you can do a quick preview. This is what my plot is going to look like when I'm ready to plot. Hit the escape button and then click OK and set current. So now anytime I go to plot, if I choose the 11 by 17 M style or plot setup, it will automatically plot correctly. Hit close and again save your work. Okay, and you're now ready to start your exercise, or your assignment, I should say, which is worth 20 points. So first we want to divide the space in half in both directions, the model area where you're going to be drawing. Select the line command, make sure that you have your object snap midpoint checked, and then we are going to go from the midpoint here to the midpoint here and enter. Notice that I did not change my layer, so it's very easy to put this on the correct layer. So we want to select the line, go up to your layer box and go ahead and click borderline for this one. And then I want to make the borderline my current layer. Okay, so it should say borderline. The next thing I'm going to do is select the line tool again, and I want to start from the midpoint of this line that I've already drawn and go over to the right to the perpendicular point, enter, and then start here and go over to the left to the perpendicular point and enter. If you have your OSNAP on and you're using your perpendicular and midpoint, you should have perfectly divided square or rectangles into the 4 areas that we're going to be drawing. And that is the complete setup, so go ahead and refer to your drawing instructions and complete the project.